We see from this story that a good man is brought down first by disbelief in God's promises. Like I pointed out, Solomon's first problem was not out of control sexual lust. His first problem was that he didn't trust God enough to fully rely on him.
You know what it takes for most people to rely on someone else? Seeing them be reliable. That's a heck of a start, and something we not only don't get from God, but told we shouldn't even want it. Let's do this. Greetings, fellow space travelers. BionicDance here. The biggest problem for belief in God has always been faith. When it comes to knowing such a creature exists, we're given about as much evidence as we are for leprechauns. And yet, Christians claim that so much hinges on our belief in the face of zero or even contradictory evidence, and they just don't seem to get it when we tell them no.
Now, that is almost always the case. The root core of all sin is unbelief. If you peel back the layers of any area of sin or compromise in your life, there you're going to find the core, the sin of unbelief.
Then the solution seems simple. Remove the necessity of belief. Have God show up, say hi, let us know he's real. It'd be awfully difficult to not believe in the face of a personal appearance. Which really seems more likely? That God is real but expects us to believe in him sight unseen or else. Or that the Bible's fanboys have gone way overboard.
When I talk to high school students, which I've done several times this summer, who will not offer up their lives fully to Jesus, I always tell them, it's really a belief problem. See, you think that following Jesus is going to make you miserable. That's the real question that you got to deal with. Is Jesus trustworthy of the offering of your life?
Those are actually two separate issues. Will being religious suck, and am I being punked by you religionoids? Two different questions, related but distinct. The truth is that the belief problem isn't in Jesus, it's in you. This preacher fellow sounds like a used car salesman who's trying to get us to buy a car without having it inspected, without us even test driving it. And then he tries to tell us that we're the problem. What an asshole. Pretentious, self-righteous jerkwad.
Can you trust Jesus with all these areas that you're afraid of? In whatever area of your life you're not fully obeying God, it's because that's an area where you are afraid of being let down in that area, and you don't really feel like you can trust anybody else with it except for yourself.
There is so much wrong with this statement, it's almost tragic. First of all, it assumes belief. Oh, you're afraid God might let you down? Obviously you believe in him, you just don't trust him. Well, guess what, Sparky? I genuinely don't believe in God at all. So let's start there. Begin by proving God is real, and then we'll see whether I think he's reliable. And that is the second problem, this conflating of belief in existence with confidence or trust. They're not the same thing, and the latter requires the former. I could believe God exists and still think he's a loser, sure. Or I might not believe in him at all. Heck, I might not believe in him and still think he's a loser based on his legends. I can certainly point to more than a few characters in books and movies that are pathetic, and I don't think they're real either. Third, who says I think I can only rely on myself if I don't rely on God? I've got friends and family who've shown me they're on my side, trustworthy and helpful. Just because I don't think God is my, wait for it, guardian angel, doesn't mean I trust nobody else. This whole argument stinks like a porta potty on the last day of the festival. Let's get actual, shall we?
Whatever area of your life you are not obeying God in is an area you just don't trust him in. Let me tell you some of the biggest ones that I see as a pastor. Here's number one, romance. You just feel like I can't do it God's way because God's going to mess that up. I got to take this into my hands. So I'm going to date somebody I shouldn't be dating, or we're not going to do it on God's timing, or whatever.
This is wildly screwed up. First, how are you supposed to do it on God's schedule? It's not like he's marked your calendar for you. Tell me how anyone is able to know whether the timing is right. Idiotic. Second, if that someone I'm not supposed to be with remark isn't a jab at the LGBT community, then I ask again, how are you supposed to know? Oh sure, put your trust in God, who isn't going to even give you a fucking hint. I got married to Mary Sue and I should have married Sally Ann? How about dropping me a fucking memo, God, you dipshit? I'm supposed to obey your dumb butt when I'm not even sent a damn email? Yeah, great system you've got set up here, jackass. Do you see the problem here? Put your trust in an absentee father figure who can't be bothered to pick up the phone once in a while. I suppose I could pray, but how do I tell my own wishes from his, assuming that they're not all my own wishes because God is a wishful thinking delusion? Does anybody else want to play this divine game of telephone? Seriously?
A second way I see a lot is money. People feel like, well, I just don't know if I can trust what God says about money. And so, yeah, I know he says to give him the first and the best. And Christians usually, in the Bible, interpret that as at least the first 10%. But no, I'm not going to do that, because what happens if we go through a rainy day? What happens if I have a bill I can't pay? How can I actually be happy in life if I take a 10 or 20% reduction in my expendable income in the month? And I know what God says about how he'll multiply and bless me, but I just don't know if I really trust that with something that important.
Well, that, and has anybody noticed just how much this religion seems to love martyrs? Go ahead. Trust a book that thinks hardship honors God, that self-sacrifice is virtuous. I'm sure that'll go well. If your God isn't real, just about the most boneheaded mistake you can make is expecting him to be your golden parachute. This guy's not asking for belief, he's asking for blind faith. What's the difference, really, between being faithful and being gullible? Even if you're right, the same kind of thinking is what would get you in trouble if you were being scammed.
You just don't really trust him. That's why you can't get over that hurdle of obedience. Does that make sense? Here's another one. Forgiveness. I see it happen a lot. Somebody's like, I know God wants me to forgive. I know that, but if I forgive them, then they're never really going to understand how bad they hurt me, and I'm just going to get hurt again. And so I'm going to have to hold on to this bitterness because I don't trust God enough to do what he says.
Who says we hold on to bitterness if we don't forgive? Revenge is sweet, even hilarious. Even simple things, like when someone decides to rip into you on a YouTube comment section, and you give back as good as you get, then several other commenters are standing beside you, laying into the fucker, giving him 8 completely different flavors of shit. Oh, that can make a girl walk on air for hours. That's not bitterness. That fucker took it full in the face, and it was beautiful. It's like winning the big game, defeating the bad guy, the victorious triumph to end the epic battle. It's not anger. It's one for the scrapbook. Have you truly never been in that situation? Because if not, man, you're missing out.
Or maybe life throws a curveball at you, and all of a sudden you get laid off from the job, or you get cut from the squad, or you don't get into the school, or you get an unexpected medical diagnosis, and your first impulse is, God doesn't have a plan. He fell asleep, or it's not a good plan. And so you kind of take back control of your life, and you live angry at him because you just don't know if you can trust him with that area.
Yeah, the you're just angry at God argument. But I think the most telling part was when he said, and you take back control of your life. The submissiveness inherent in that statement is both sad and sick. He's telling you that you're supposed to want to be someone else's meat puppet, that you're nothing more than a slave to someone else's whim, a footnote in a plan over which you have no say, and you're supposed to like it. Thanks, but no thanks. I wouldn't put up with that from a human, and I'm not about to put up with it from a God you can't even prove is real. Indeed, if he's not real, then I am putting up with it from humans. And we're also back to the how do you know problem. If God gives you cancer, is it his will that you just let it kill you, or are you supposed to persevere and fight it? How do you know? I'm going to take and keep control of my life because, again, trusting someone who can't even put in the occasional visit is foolish beyond reason.
The question that I have for you is, what happened to Solomon? Is it happening to you? The root cause of all of Solomon's problems was not sexual lust. The root problem was he felt insecure and felt like he needed to hedge his bet by not letting God have control of an area. Where is that happening to you? Where have you not let go? Where can you not trust God? Where are you hedging your bet through small areas of compromise and not letting go of things that God's told you to let go of?
Intellectual integrity, critical thinking, logical reasoning, pretty much anything relating to gaining knowledge undistorted by bias or unfounded belief. Of course, that makes giving up control of everything else pretty much impossible, since they all require abandoning those bits first. Oh well. And I'm spent. Until next time.
And remember, if it can't be in your hand, it's all in your head.